Good morning and welcome to the Kirsty Knits and Sews YouTube channel. My name is Kirsty and today I have a regular episode where I have stats to talk with you about from January. I have one finish for knitting, I have a few spinning finishes, and I have a lot of things that I have been working on. I'm also planning to pick another project out of this to be a focus knit for the coming week. So welcome or welcome back. It is great to see you here. If you haven't watched last episode, I recommend you go back and watch it because there is a giveaway, a 1,000 subscriber giveaway, which when I was recording the episode, I said I would pick on the 14th. However, as I uploaded it, I realized that it was a much shorter time than I expected because it took a long time to edit and upload. So it's now open until the 20th. And I did write that on the screen during editing of the last episode. So anyway, go back and watch it if you haven't already. It's there's a pattern giveaway and a package giveaway. So go and watch that and find out how to enter for that. But for today, I have a lot to share with you and I'm pretty excited. I've been trying to get this episode recorded for a few days now, and I'm finally here with everything ready with a little bit of time. So here we go. It is Sunday, February 15th. We got a lot of snow last night, which meant we have beautiful light again. It's been grey and dreary here in Rzeszów in Poland, where I live with my husband and my kids. And the snow, while it has meant that everything kind of comes down a little bit as it's very slippery outside, has also meant that we have light. And light is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So let's get going. My first thing that I'm going to show you today is not a new finish, but it is something that I finished a while ago and I finally sewed in the ends. I am very, very happy that these are now done. They are sewn in, they are blocked, and they are ready to ship for a birthday, which happened a week ago. So, shush, I'm going to put them in the mail this week. And yes, these are my Stardew Valley socks now. If you've been here a while, I think I finished these in November. So I had finished them, I sewed in the ends for 1.5 of the socks, and I just had the foot of the second sock to go, but there were a lot of ends for the foot of the second sock, and I finally got them done. So my plan was always to show them again here. However, I did have a question if someone asked if I could show the difference between the ladder back jacquard technique and the traditional catching floats technique, because for the clouds, one of them I did entirely ladder back jacquard. The other one I did mostly catching floats and then added in a little bit of colour work, ladder back jacquard at the end. Now, if you're not aware of the difference, ladder back jacquard is where you basically create an extra stitch behind on the inside. Let me show you. You basically create an extra stitch on the inside. And so when you're knitting on the front, you're also knitting, it's kind of like a lattice work on the back. And so this stitch here is purely on the back, and it means that those floats on either side are smaller. And you can see I've done it here in blue and I've done it here in the white. Because the clouds were so irregular, I started them with colour work, catching floats, and I was concerned about, I'm sure I go into this a lot back in November, but I will share it here because it makes sense. I was concerned about not having it stretchy enough for socks, but also I was concerned about having colour showing through. And so here you can see there's bits of blue showing through in the clouds. And that is because I've been catching that blue behind the clouds. In the ladder back jacquard version, it doesn't have the same kind of blue showing through. There is still blue behind it. And so you can see like there is definitely some darkness behind there, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not the same level of effect. It also has, I think, given the fabric a much more uniform look. I was just looking at that going, is there a problem there? But no, that was just the edge of the sock and an increase. So that's not got to do with ladder back jacquard. That's just the sock design. These socks, I should say, Stardew Valley Spring is coming. Spring is here socks. They're inspired by the game Stardew Valley, which is quite fun. Me and my husband and kids have been playing it together as a family game recently on PlayStation. My son bought it with some birthday money, and so we've been playing together. It's been a lot of fun. So getting these out and finish them has also been quite enjoyable. Yes, so in terms of ladder back colour work, I do think the ladder back has provided a more regular look for the clouds. So this one has been done all ladder back. This one has been done stranded colour work by catching floats. If I show you inside, you'll be able to see where it changed. So this one, you can kind of see that negative space for the clouds, and that's because that's the ladder back jacquard happening. So the clouds inside look blue and the background looks white. Ladder back jacquard. This one isn't quite as regular, and you can see here I've been catching floats. Also, you can see me tying in ends a bit, but you can see floats have been caught, things are changing around, and then down here you can see ladder back jacquard over here, which has provided that regularity. I think definitely for regular patterns like this, I'm going to be doing ladder back jacquard. There is one colour work pattern I'm going to show you today, which I have just been catching my floats in a normal fashion. It's been like 1 or 2 rows. I think the most I've had to catch in a row is 3. The rest of it has been 1 or 2 rows, and so I haven't bothered setting it up for ladder back. For this, I did end up marking in the pattern where I would be including that extra stitch for the ladder back, and it worked really, really well. When I was trying to do it without that mark in the pattern, it was really difficult. So I do recommend, if you're doing a pattern and it doesn't already have it marked in it, some will, that you just like print it out, or if you're using a PDF reader, see if you can mark up the pattern anyway, to just say this is where my extra stitch is. And it means that whenever you're following that pattern, you're able to read it. In terms of the foot in these socks, there was one part that on one sock I did ladder back and the other one I did stranded. So I'm just going to show you that from the inside and then the outside. And then you can decide if you want to do this or not, based on the difference. So in fact, one of them I did stranded for one and then ladder back for the second, and the other one I did ladder back for both. So this here, I just caught my floats in between. And when I'm catching floats, I always try and make sure I'm not catching the same stitch every row, because that can make a different effect on the front. It can kind of pull that stitch out a little bit. So you can see here, I've been changing which stitch I catch. And then down here, I did ladder back. For the other sock, both the top one and the bottom one, I did ladder back. That is, I'll show you from the front, that is where there was just a stem. And so here, it's here and here, both of them are just stems. I think, in my opinion, this one is the one where I caught it, and this is the ladder back. And I think this one just pops out a lot more. I'm going to check on the other sock and see if it's the same. Yeah, I think where I've done the traditional, it looks almost 3D, where the other ones blend in a little bit more. So that's been interesting to just get that contrast. And I think it's just, in this case, I don't notice colour bleeding from the back or anything. Green to green, it's not as obvious as blue and white, but it does look like it's popping out more. And that's probably because, I don't know, maybe I was trying to be looser because I didn't want it to stretch over. I'm not sure, because both of them have been caught in the middle here with the stitch and here in the thing. So it's possibly just that I was trying to make it looser because it's a a sock and I didn't want it to be too tight. Anyway, they're done. They are done, and I've shown you the difference between the ladder back and the stranded colour wax, so I can now pack these up and send them off. I had originally thought I would make 4 pairs of these because during lockdown there were 4 of us who were playing Stardew Valley every week. I'm not going to do that anymore. I am planning to make more. I do have all 4 patterns. There's spring, autumn, winter and summer. And so I am planning to make all 4 of them, but I'm not planning to make all 4 of them for all 4 people who are playing. Yeah, my husband has said he doesn't want any. He's not a huge fan of hand knit socks. So I will make some for me, and I have a few other people that I want to make Stardew socks for. So I will put that into my reckoning at some point, but these socks took a long time to finish and even longer to weave in the end. So I don't know when I'm going to even start the next pair, but that pair is done. I am very, very, very happy with them and how beautifully they've locked out. In terms of the yarn use for that, I used a whole range. I used Rosarios, I used Fable, I used Grundle hot socks, Merino Grundle hot socks, something different, Yavol, which is a Lang Yarns one. I used a little bit of Daffodil Road yarns. It was just basically a whole mix. I did buy a whole lot of Fable for it particularly, and this white I think was Rosarios, and I'm not a huge fan of how like it just looks a little thinner compared to some of the other ones. The blue here is Fable. This green is Yavol. The green in the background, I think that was a Grundle hot socks, and I really, really liked working with that one. Yeah, anyway, it's a whole bunch of different socks. I just have a lot of plain solid colours in sock yarn now because I wanted to do them, and I've been using them for a whole bunch of other socks as well. So that is my first finish, which wasn't a new finish, but it is finished now. And that is the last time you'll be seeing that here because it is being shipped off. Now, my first finish that counts, if I'm going to put it that way, for this month is, I haven't done stats yet. All right, let's talk about stats quickly and then I'll show you my next finish because this is a February finish, not a January finish. So in terms of what I used in January, I used 876 grams. That's things that I finished that have gone out of my stash. I finished 7 things. That included the 2 big seat covers. Again, go watch the last episode if you missed it because I think I showed all 7 of the things that I finished in January in the last episode, but it wasn't the end of January yet, so I couldn't do stats. There were still 26 unfinished items at the end of January, which does not include the 7 blankets, so that would be 33 if you're including the blankets. And I used 10 skeins went out of my stash, which I was pretty happy with. However, I did bring in 17 skeins. Now, 2 of those were hand spun and 7 of them were for an unplanned object. It was a very, very good sale on some, I think it was Highland wool that I already had in one colour, and there was a baby pink that they were like end of line clearance, 50% off kind of thing. And so I did buy what they had left, which was 7 50-gram balls to make something for my daughter. Not sorry. But so that's why it's 17. And that means at the beginning of the year, I had 563 skeins in my stash. Now I have 570 skeins. So that did go up last month. I did decide not to track grams total, like add up all my grams in my stash and then see how that fluctuates. I'm just tracking how many grams I use, and I'm tracking how many skeins I had and then balancing that every month. I decided in the end doing grams would be more confusing because I'm still using scraps and other things as well. So I'm just tracking how many grams I use and how many skeins come in and out. if you're wondering, because that is, I wasn't sure if I was going to do both during my stash stats and plans, and that's where I settled. Yeah, and I have already bought a fair few skeins this month, which I will tell you totals at the end of February, but it is for a special Christmas jumper for someone that I did not have enough yarn for. So I will talk about that later this episode even, and show you the yarn I got for that. All right, finished object number 2, Christmas socks. This was 12 cast-ons of Christmas, day 10. I cast on 5 socks as part of 15 that I wanted to make throughout the year. So this was 1 out of 5 that I started, and 1 out of 15 for the 12 cast-ons. It's funny, it's a 12 cast-ons and one day had 15 projects. I love how Ange has allowed that to be flexible over the years. 12 cast-ons, if you're not aware, I have a playlist linked below, but it's a knit-along hosted by Ange of Yarn and Yarns, where you cast things on between Christmas and the end of January, and then you work on them throughout the year. So cast-on period is over. If you haven't joined in this year, you can absolutely join in next year. But yes, this is one that I started, and I have a vlog about it. So these ones are hobby Christmas yarn. Do I have the tag here? This is what it looks like in the ball. I do have the tag. Amazing. It is Christmas sock wool, 75/25 superwash, and it is color number 5, which is Prancer. I used a contrast color for the heel, which is one that I dyed. Yeah, it's a mini that I dyed. I really liked the color. I thought it was a fun pop. So they are done. They do not match. I did not try. These are, I think, men's size 13. They're very, very big. And I did 15 rows of 2x2 ribbing for the cuff. And then for the leg, I did 40 rows, and the foot I just knit until it was the right length for a men's 13 Australian shoe. I did do size medium of Vanilla Socks on Magic Loop by Kay of the Crazy Sock Lady. And she, like, her sock is just vanilla. So what I did to get this texture is I did 2 rows of knit 2, purl 2, and then 2 rows of plain knitting. And that gives that beautiful little waffle texture. I was debating making every sock in here some kind of pattern. I'm doing some that are Christmas yarns as Christmas presents, and I'm doing some that are colour work. And so I thought if I do some colour work, some texture, that would be really fun. However, I have noticed I have no plain knitting, no vanilla knitting. And so in Polish classes, I was doing these socks and I kept doing them wrong and having to tink back. And tinking back when you're reading in Polish is quite tricky. So I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. No, that's not true. I am going to do some textured, but some of them I'm also just going to do plain. So that was day 10. This is, oh, and I should say I finished that on, let me just check. The 12th of January, I finished them, and they're 74 grams of yarn. So I pulled out this pair and I decided to make these ones plain. I was planning to do these the same waffle texture as that one. And then I was debating doing, Kay has a new pattern, Vanilla Bean Sock, which I have bought the pattern and I really want to make that again. But I just needed, oh, I don't know if you heard that, but we had snow last night and I can hear some ice and snow falling off the roof. Yeah, I needed plain knitting, and this one was almost finished the cuff. So I pulled this out, finished the cuff, and knit for Polish and during a meeting, and then I added in a contrast heel. In fact, I think I started the heel, I maybe even started the heel in Polish. I do remember knitting that in Polish class. This is the yarn for this one. This was also part of my day 10 cast on number 10, and it is Trekking XXL color 753. This is, yep, Trekking XXL. I don't have any more information about that. But I do love how that's working out. They just look like super cozy Christmas socks. I am debating, I have quite a few Christmas sock yarns, and so I'm enjoying working them up, but I'm even debating doing some like striping, so doing 2 rows of one, 2 rows of another, and getting some really crazy Christmas socks out of it. I think that would be really fun. For this one, I've just pulled out some leftovers for the heel. This is Black Wattle Yarn and Fibres in, I'm not going to remember the name. I made my husband's socks out of this a while ago, and so I had some leftovers. It is the Grevillea base, I remember that. However, Black Wattle Yarn and Fibres are no longer dyeing yarn, and I do believe it was the Skein sisters. If I'm wrong there, I will put it on the screen, but I'm pretty sure it was the Skein sisters have bought, Skein sisters, Happy Skein maybe. I will put it on the screen. Have bought, they're in South Australia, they've bought the colours from Black Wattle Yarn and Fibre. I don't know what they've dyed or what they're using at the moment, but if you love the colourways of Black Wattle Yarn and Fibre, I will try and remember to link them below so that you can go and find out. I knew someone had bought it, and then they commented on one of my videos saying, we're the ones who bought the colourways. And I was like, that's amazing. And I went and checked out their website, and now I just cannot remember. I do remember they were in South Australia, and I've never been to South Australia, so I'd love to go and visit their shop and visit South Australia. Anyway, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I'm from Australia. I live in Poland, if you're new here, but I've never been to South Australia, so that would be fun. Anyway, all right, so that is my 2 cast-on 10s that I've been working on. Another thing that I've been working on is my temperature blanket. Now, this is a beast. I love it. And I did just, I think I mentioned it last time I was thinking of it, I did just buy a new pair of needles so I can have 2 pairs of needles on this the whole time. And so I did buy Knit Pro Nova Metals, which is the same type that I'm already using on here. And so I just bought a second pair in the same size so that I had consistency. I actually don't mind Knit Pro Novas. I've never used them for socks, but for larger circumference things, I don't mind. I've never had a problem with jogs at the beginning. I find jogs where needles join cords are most annoying when you're doing small sizes because it's tight. When you're doing large sizes, I don't have the same kind of problems with catching and stuff. And I do occasionally find with these that there's like a little bump or a scratch on the ends that can be a little bit annoying occasionally. Not enough for me to not use them though. So there you go, Knit Pro Novas. I did buy another pair. And that was with, when I bought the yarn for the fabric, for the words. When I bought the yarn for the jumper, I bought those needles at the same time. And then I bought a bit of extra yarn to get the free shipping because the yarn was already on sale. And so with the free shipping, I was able to get 3 for the price of 2, I think. Anyway, I did that because it was yarn that I liked and I knew I would use. So we're not doing a no buy, just being wise about what I buy. All right, temperature blanket. Where are we? It is February. I have done almost to the end of January, and I am planning to do a separate colour to indicate changes of months. So I need to remember to do that. But here is where I am up to. I should have put this onto the other thing before I showed you, but I didn't. It's still on one needle, so it's going to be a bit squished. Here is where I am up to. You can see the difference in colour between the 2 sides. This side here is the lows, and this side here is the highs of every day. So this is the 1st to the 29th of January. This is where I was last time I showed you, so I've done another couple of inches. I was thinking of working on this last night, but I ended up playing a game with my husband, so didn't get this up to date, but I did record all the temperatures. I'm using online World of Weather, maybe. They have a historical weather data, daily highs and lows, or at least for where I am. I don't know if they have every country in the world. And so I'm using that because that seemed to be the most accurate historical weather data that I could find that lined up with what our local thermometer was saying for where we are. So if you're interested, that's how I'm doing it. This kind of blue-grey is the lowest temperature. That is less than minus 15 degrees, or minus 15 and less degrees Celsius is that blue-grey. That is the lowest, and the highest one that I've got so far here is this colour up here, where I'm actually holding two double. I'm holding a mini and a skein from 3 Tree Fibre Crafts at the same time. They're both from 3 Trees, but one's an aquary mini and the other one is a more blue-grey, blue-brown colour called Remnants. So yes, you can see that is 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. That is the highest that we had in January. That is the highest that we had in January at all. And even then, the range is 1 to 5. I'm just looking at the data here, and the highest temperature we had in January was 2 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so this last week, which is the 1 to 5 range, was did I do that wrong? Oh no, I haven't done that one yet. Cool. Yeah, so this is like 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, these 5. So it says 0 to 1 to 5, but it's all 1s and 2s. The reason I'm getting confused if I've done it wrong is because the lows I can do 1 day ahead. And so I've got that I've crossed off that I've done the day, but I've actually only crossed off that I've done the low. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on the lows until the last time I had data recorded, which was yesterday. And then I'll work on the highs until the day before yesterday. Because I think I just explained this last time, but the way that I'm picking up stitches in the middle mean that I can only do 1 day less on the highs than the lows because I can't pick up the stitch because the stitch isn't there yet to pick up. Hope that makes sense. Anyway, the pattern that I'm using for this is the 2-panel bias knit blanket. It's a Yarnspirations, and it's designed using Red Heart. Now, in the pattern, they have you knit 2 panels and then join them together, and I'm modding that to have them join as I go so I don't have to join them at the end. To have them join as I go, I'm just knitting on the second panel. I'm knitting to 1 stitch left, and then I'm slipping 2 stitches with yarn in front, which is the last stitch on the needle and the panel, the stitch on the edge of the other panel. And then I turn it around and I knit those 2 together and keep going. I am also modding it that I am slipping the last stitch with yarn in front for all of the edges. And that means that I'm getting a V stitch on the edge. So that's just my mods for the pattern, but the pattern will be linked in the Ravelry page down below. I am very excited to get some more work done on this one, actually. I've really enjoyed working on it. I've got a few ends to tie in. I am trying to do that as I go a little bit, so I'm not stuck with a whole bunch at the end, because from the socks we all know that's not going to work well for me. So I am doing a few and then sewing them in, and as much as I can, I'm also carrying them up. So if I've got like 3 or 4 days where I use a different color and then I come back to a color, because I'm not doing it every day. This may change, but at the moment I'm not doing it every day. I'm doing it every week or so. And so it means that I can do, 5 rows of the same color, or I'm doing 2 of one and then 1 of another and then 2 of the first one again. And so as much as I can, I'm just carrying them up rather than cutting the yarn after every day. I think the most I've skipped is 4 days. I think I skipped 5 rows once. And so when I do that, I just kind of am twisting the yarn around as I go so that it's not floating at the back. I hope that makes sense. I avoid tying in ends where I can. But yeah, all the information about the pattern, I'm not sure I've put the yarns I'm using there because it is a lot of yarns and scrappy, but I have put a photo of my color gradient on Ravelry, and the pattern and the mods that I'm doing for the pattern are there as well. Very excited that I'm finally doing a temperature blanket. And now that it's snowing again, I'm like, I want to work on it again. I want to get it out and finish it. Not finish it, but get it up to date, because it's so exciting when the temperature changes. We got a few 6 degree, maybe 1 7-degree day. So I'm like, that's a new color. I get to add a new color in. Oh, so exciting. I've got a latte here. We have a coffee machine, so I've got a latte, which is vanilla and gingerbread latte today. All right, the next one that I have to show you was my focus project. So, hi. I don't know if you are new here or if you have missed a couple of episodes, but what I've decided to do to help me focus on what I'm knitting, or choose what I should be focusing on knitting, is I've started pulling things out of here to give me a focus project. And this was my focus project for the first week of February, and I have loved having a focus project. Now, I haven't only worked on it, I've done a few rows here and there on different things. I obviously needed some vanilla knitting and I pulled that out, but it was so nice to have something to focus on and to see progress. And oh, I didn't do that. I'm just gonna pull out my temperature blanket and move my marker so that next time I show you, I can tell you this is where I was and this is how much progress I made. All right, let's move for the temperature blanket. Just so that it's nice to see progress. I just got interrupted by a phone call from my sister, which I absolutely took. She was actually returning my call. But she lives in Australia, I live in Poland. We don't have much time in the day that we can overlap and talk, and I haven't spoken to her one-on-one for quite a few weeks, so it was really lovely to catch up with her. And hi Mel, because I know you'll be watching this at some point too. So I'm not entirely sure how much I got into talking about this next project. I did leave the bag open so I'd know where I was up to. But this is the Awesome Gossamer by Stephen West. Now, this is one I actually saw. Whiskey and Wool, she has a podcast, and I'll try and remember to link her down below, had made this shawl in beautiful pinks, a little bit of lilac, I think, magentas, really, really beautiful pink gradient. And when she was showing it on her podcast, and she started it a year ago, my husband saw it and went, I would love that shawl. Now, if my husband says, can you make me something? I say, absolutely. Because like I said, he doesn't really like socks. I've made socks for him a couple of times and he wears them if he doesn't have any other socks. But it's not a great hand knit sock person. But he loves shawls. And so I've knit him the Tri-Gradient shawl by Stephen West, which I'm looking around to see if it's here. I think he's probably wearing it already, or it's downstairs. He wears it a lot. And so when he said that would be a shawl I'd love, I was like, say no more. I'm going to go buy some wool. And I did. And I did cast it on last year. I was seeing if I could get it done for Christmas, and I didn't. Anniversary, and I didn't. So this is one that I am trying to see if I can get done before the weather warms up too much. And this is where I am up to. He didn't choose the colours, but he chose the colours theme. We went through Stephen West. I said it's the Awesome Gossamer, didn't I? So this was actually last year's Glow blow along, I think is what it's called, which is happening again very soon, and this year it's a mystery. But basically he designed a shawl last year. It was entirely mohair. And this one is done very cleverly in that you're holding 2 strands double, but because the colors are different, you end up with this beautiful gradient. And so like you can see here, like this one and this one both have a yellow color, this one and this one both have a red color. But because you're holding 2 strands together, it's a beautiful gradient. So we looked at Stephen West's page on Ravelry, and he had a lot of different color themes that had already been knit. And there was one that was kind of browns, similar to this. And my husband said, that kind of reminds me of an owl. And he said, I'd love that kind of one. So I went to Where I Buy My Hair. I don't have a tag or anything to show you, but it's from Vutchki Vormi, and I will link the page down below. And it's this. It's called, here's one where the end is out. It's called Suri Alpaca Mohair, but it has no mohair in it. It's Suri Alpaca, merino, I think, and polyamide, so a synthetic. It's great. I've used it in so many projects recently. The price of it is quite good. They come in 25 gram balls, but each ball has 300. Now I'm not going to be able to remember. Let me just double check. Each one has 375 meters for 25 grams. So it's definitely a true lace weight. It's 53% alpaca, 14% wool, and 33% polyamide. So it's quite, in my opinion, quite a nice one. It is very soft, definitely next to skin. If you have trouble with alpaca or mohair, you may have trouble with this, but definitely, in my opinion, I think it's delightfully soft. This is like a cloud because it's just held double, so much fluff. So I started this and wanted to see if I could get it done, like I said, by Christmas, and then our anniversary, which is in mid-January, and I didn't get it done, but I'm getting there. So it starts off with this section, which is just garter stitch, and then you go into small bobbles and medium bobbles, or bubbles, and then large bubbles. So I've only done one complete row of the large bubbles, and I'm into the second color. And I say second color, for this gradient, I could only find 7 colors in the gradient that I liked. So my first color I actually got 2 of, and so the first bobble here is actually one color held double with itself. So if you had, say, 4 colors and you wanted to do a gradient with 4 colors, you could do it where you hold one together like AA, AB, BB, BC, CC, CD, D, DA, and that would give you the same amount of colors in the gradient. That would mean that some were solid rather than mulled. And because when I looked at the example that Stephen had in these colors, he had 4 lighter and then 4 darker, and I only had, like, really, there were 2 beiges and a cream, and so I got a second cream to hold it double with itself to get that. This is going to be huge. It ends up with almost 800 stitches, I believe, by the end. So all I've got left to do is this big bobble section, and then there's another garter stitch chevron, I think, at the end to finish it off. So I'm getting close. However, the rows are getting longer, and even the plain rows, when I was on the medium bobbles, I think I figured out it took about 15 minutes to do a knit row and about 20 minutes to do a purl row. So in half an hour, I could kind of get there and back just. As they're getting bigger, obviously, that is getting more stitches and will take more time. So there is a lot of time left in this shawl to get it done. That's the wrong side. That's the right side. And so when it comes to picking projects, I said I wasn't sure if I was going to do 1 week per project, or if I was going to do 2 weeks per project, but breaking it up. So A, B throughout the month. I have now had a week break from this because I've been working on my other project that I picked out last week. And I think for this coming week, I'm going to pick this up again and see how much progress I can make. And so this will be my focus for this coming week. I'm not sure if I will continue that going forward. I may focus for a week, and then after that, just kind of work on it sporadically until it's done. I'm hoping I can get it to the point at the end of this week that maybe the big bobbles are finished. That seems a lot. Anyway, at least get some more progress on the big bobbles. If I can get onto the chevron edging, then I think I can do that sporadically, and it will be close enough that I'll just work on it. So pretty. This is going to be huge. So delightful. My husband is very excited to get this, and it's so light. Which actually, this is one reason I decided to count skeins, not grams in, grams out, just grams out and skeins in, skeins out. It's because things like this is going to be 8 skeins or 8 balls of yarn, because they're only 25 grams. So it's going to be 200-ish grams for the entire thing, but it's going to be, what, almost 400 times 8 in terms of yardage. And so even though they're 25 grams each, it'll count as 8 skeins when this is done. And I think that in terms of yardage is a more realistic view of the amount of work that goes into it, rather than 200 grams, because 200 grams could be like 3 pairs of socks. And that's nothing compared to how much time and effort that shawl is taking. So I'm loving that, and I'm looking forward. I've had a week's break from it, and I am ready to pick it up again. This is in a bag that I've made myself, and I do have a tutorial linked below if you want to try making a project bag. So having a week's break, I'm ready and raring to go. The project that I have been working on this week, which I also picked out of the bowl last episode, is my Alpine Bloom tee. Now, this is a pattern by, not Caitlin Hunter, Boylan Knitworks. There you go. This is a pattern by Boylan Knitworks, and I am using Pasquale Pinta as the main colour. This is colour 118, and it is a merino silk and ramier blend. I bought this for another jumper, but I couldn't get mohair that matched from the same company, and I really, 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 really liked their mohair. It's called Bliss. Delightful. Very expensive, but delightful. And I had planned to make a jumper that is designed in this yarn, and they didn't have a bright orange mohair. So I left that, but I continued to buy it thinking maybe I'll find mohair in the future. And I also got brown because it was a striped sweater. When I got home and I realized that actually I wanted this to be the main color to go with this hand spun that I spun, I then now have the 3 skeins, they're 50 gram skeins, but I have 3 skeins of the brown that match this that I now have no plans for. So that's sitting there waiting for inspiration. But I am so, so, so happy with how this is working out. So this is the Alpine Bloom tee. It is fingering weight, and this is what I have done so far. Now, it's very low contrast. You might be able to make out there's a flower up here, there's a stem with some leaves going up, and then down here, it's on a quite short cable, so it's bunching up a little bit, but you've got some dots here, and then I'm starting, where is it? Just here, is starting the big feature flower. Now, I understand that is very, very low contrast, and that won't be everyone's cup of tea, but I am so enjoying it. I was thinking about this. It is, in my opinion, I can see it better in person than on the camera. I guess there's two things to say about this. One is I love letting yarn do its thing. And so when I chose to do this as the contrast color with an orange in the background, I knew that there would be parts of low contrast because this was, I think in the end I had 200 grams, 450 gram bumps, but they were heavily orange. So I knew even though I spun it fractal, there would be sections that were more orange. And you can see there, like the center is almost pure orange. But there are definitely bits that are more orange. Even on the outside, like I'm in a quite orange section at the moment. I love letting yarn do its thing. I also love the kind of the softness of that. I know there are bits with the blue that's more contrasting and bits with the pink and orange which are less contrasting. But I just think it is beautiful, and you're getting the pattern of the color, even if you're not fully seeing every bit of the pattern of the pattern. But if I just knit straight stockinette stitch of those color gradients, it wouldn't have the same gentle effect. So I'm very, very happy with it. Now, I did do a little bit of yarn management. So if you're not someone who's into low contrast and you're thinking, how is that with yarn management? I did do some yarn management, and let me show you what I pulled out. So before, oh, I just dropped one. Before I picked this up as my focus project, I did pick it up for just a day. I came up to my bedroom. I had, I don't know, half an hour or something where I could sit and knit. My husband had the kids. And I do have lots of projects in here. This is where I kind of store stuff that I'm not working on actively. But it meant that I didn't have anything that I could pick up that I was already working on. And I knew that this was coming up, and I was like, I'm just going to work on it for a few minutes, see how much I get done. And so I did. And I reached this section of yarn, which if I hold it up there, like it's quite a bit lighter. There's some contrast there. And I was like, oh, is it too close? Is it not? And I went back and forth a little bit, and I was like, I'm going to leave it in, let the yarn do what it wants. When I came back a few days later to pick it up, when it was time to focus on it, I could not see the difference in the lighting that I was in at that point between this and this. Nothing. And I thought, okay, that's too little contrast. If I cannot tell the difference at all with these stitches of like the 2 or 3 rows I've knit, it's too low contrast. So I pulled it out, just the part that was purely orange, like the lighter orange and the darker orange. And then when it got back to pink or blue, I joined it back in. And so that was like right at the top here. It would have been this section here. And so you can see it's still very low contrast with the pink, but at least it's contrast. That happened again a little bit later on. So that time I actually had to rip back 3 rows. So I took my needles out, picked up 3 rows back, and then re-knit. A while later, and I'm not entirely sure where, I think down here, near this blue section, I noticed that again, I couldn't see the difference between my contrast and my main. So this is the contrast, and if I put that there, like it's almost identical. As I said, I love this. This was a 12 cast on from 2025. I've got my little number 9 stitch marker here because this was day 9, 2025, and it was a spin to knit. So I did finish spinning this yarn in 2025, and I did cast this on just in September, but I only got that far when I cast it on in September. So while it's a 2025 cast on, it didn't have much knitting work done on it, knitting progress, and so it is really delightful to be able to pick it up and work on it. So I'm actually going to move that marker now so that next time I work on it, I can show you progress. I did consider, so as I mentioned before with the socks, I have been struggling with not having vanilla knitting at the moment. I have a lot of what I would call social knits, things that I can take to a coffee or something and chat and knit. But I don't have, and I have heaps and heaps of focus knits where I need to like actually focus on a pattern. I don't have many vanilla knits where I can just knit while reading or knit in a Polish class. And so I thought this one, once I get it past the colour work, would be really, really good for that because it's just a plain body, right? So I thought maybe I could get this done in a week, get the yoke done and put it in vanilla knitting. I am currently, I think, on row 35 out of 60 rows. And the rows are getting bigger. So I was hopeful that I would get it to a point where I could just kind of limp across the line. I don't think that's going to happen right now. And I think having put a week of focusing into this, I am ready for a bit of a break, which is sad because it's so beautiful. And I would love to make progress and get to that body. However, I am planning to do the tea knit along again this year. I did it last year and had such a blast. People joined in from around the world knitting t-shirts. And I say tea knit along, I'm totally up for you drinking tea at the same time. I think that's a brilliant interpretation of a tea knit along. But yes, I am planning to do that again, and that'll probably be in May and June again. So I'll talk about it much more closer to that time. But I thought if this doesn't come out of my pot again before then, I think I will do a focus on teas in May and June. And I think I've got 2 already on the needles and quite a few more lined up. So we'll see. But I thought that way, if I put this away now and it doesn't get picked, I at least have a return date for it, because I would love to get this to a point where I can wear it this year. Right now, I'm not really thinking of wearing tees. It's much too cold for that. Oh, speaking of what I'm actually wearing, I am wearing the Ali's sweater by S Knits, Sarah Nordland, I think, S Knits. It is knit in Miss Knitsky Macarena DK, which is discontinued, but she does have beautiful colours, beautiful yarns, and still has this colour, which is, I think, Midnight. Or is this Brooklyn 99? I get confused. I have quite a few of her yarns. Anyway, Ali's sweater. Ali's sweater. There is a tea version, but this is the sweater. Absolutely love it. And it's got some beautiful details around, look at all my pilling, some details around the cuff as well. Beautiful, beautiful. All right. I do have tea now because I spoke to my sister for so long. I finished my coffee and made some fresh tea. All right, this next one that I have been working on is the Gerst socks, which is from 52 Weeks of Socks. I have packed the book. In fact, I packed the book yesterday, but it is also from Cast On day number 10. And I'm knitting it with this sock set, also black water yarn and fibre. This is the stringy bark sock set, so the main skein and 2 minis. And I talk about this a lot on day 10. So if you want more information about the yarn and the pattern name, the yarn name, go check it out. This is where I am up to. I have made a little bit of progress. This is a modified pattern, and I think I spoke about it last week. The pattern has a twisted rib cuff, and I decided to end up ripping out what I'd started, do my regular cuff, and just insert the pattern onto the leg. So I'm really enjoying the way that this pattern is working up. It is mostly pearls, which means, for me, a little bit more focus while I'm knitting it, because it's not how I normally do socks. But I think it's really, really fun. And I was thinking for these, I might do a slightly longer leg. I normally do 40 rows for a leg, 14 rows of knit to purl tee for the cuff, and then 40 rows for the leg. And I thought I might do maybe 50, make them a bit longer. I'm just really enjoying knitting at the moment, knitting socks. So I'm not expecting for that to be done quickly, but it is something that I've been able to take around a few times. Like I took it on the train last week to go to church. And so I did some progress on the train. There's not much more to say that. All the socks that I'm doing on 2.5 millimeter needles, and I'm doing the pattern vanilla socks on Magic Loop by the Crazy Sock Lady, but I have been adding in patterns so that the shape of the sock will be vanilla socks on Magic Loop. The pattern of the sock is the Gerst socks from 52 Weeks of Knitting. I hope that makes sense. The Stardew socks were completely different. All right, this next one I have to show you is another 12 cast-ons project. And I have been working on this while chatting with my sister, which means I have a little bit more progress to show you than I would otherwise have had. So this is my cast-on from day one, my first 12 cast-on, and it is called the Linen Soup Wrap. I have been so enjoying working on this. I've been working on it for Scrappy Sunday. So today's Sunday, so I'm working on it today, and I worked on it last Sunday, and the progress, I mean, it's a shawl and it gets bigger as you go. So it's in the small section, but the progress in like 1.5 Sundays is really quite exciting for me. So here is the main yarn. It is by Furno Sapino Surprise, color number 96. By Furno is a shop here in Poland, and it is 100% merino, yes. So fingering weight, 100% merino, beautiful little pops of colour. And I have made 2 yarn balls, both using the Russian join method, which again, I go into a lot more on the podcast, on the day one vlog. And I basically did like bluesy blue-green colours and pinky purplish colours, but they're not, like you can see right there, they're variegated. Like this one currently has a pastel rainbow on it, and this is a more deep maroony burgundy colour. So they're definitely not all solids, and they are ranging in terms of how much I have. Like some of them I have maybe a few meters, some of them I have maybe 10 grams, 20 grams. So quite a difference in how much of each colour I have. And this is where I'm up to. So much fun. So you can see this is where I was up to last time I showed you. I think day one I got to about here. This was where I got up to last time I showed you. So I've done quite a bit since I last showed you. I love it. I've got to quite a few different colour changes. This part in here, which is a bit paler, I'm really enjoying the colours in this section here. The blue went purpley. I was using a variegated opal yarn. So I had purple stripe with the pale green and a pastel pink. Love it. And I love that about scrappy projects is you just get little sections of different colours playing together. And it's just delightful. The section at the moment I think is looking a little bit muddier in my opinion because it's got the pink goes between pink and like a greyish, dark greyish blue. In fact, even a little bit yellow at that point. The blue is pastel rainbow, and then the green has had a few pops of dark pink. And so it is losing a little bit of the regularity of further down. But still, it is quite fun to see all those colours play together. It is definitely an easy knit. I have done enough of it that I don't have to think about the pattern. I can read my knitting. Very, very simple. So I'm excited to keep working on this. I'm going to move my marker up, recognising it is halfway through Sunday. And so next time when I show you, it may have very little progress made, depending on whether I show you, whether I do another podcast this week or next week. Probably have a bit more progress, but there you go. That is cast on day one. And I've had so many people seeing this project saying they would love to make the same one. I say absolutely 100% go for it. It is delightful. I'm loving the fabric that it's making. I'm loving the color play. I love that it's using scraps. You can do 3 balls of scraps in the pattern. They suggest doing 100-gram ball and then 2 balls of scraps. But you can absolutely do 3 balls of scraps if you want to, and you can have them contrasting, you can have them the same. I chose to have a bit of contrast. Yeah, you could do a like all over scrappy where just every ball was all colors. Yeah, I grouped them into blues and pinks, and then had my main skein of green. Yeah, definitely enjoying that one. And that one I've just been leaving downstairs so that when it comes to Sunday, it's right there and I can just pick it up. All right. The other project that I have worked on since I last spoke to you, and I still have spinning and stuff to share as well. So this isn't the last thing by any means, but the last knitting project I have, which I realized I hadn't shown you, was my Advent wrap. So Advent shawl. Last year, this kind of got overshadowed by the 12 cast-ons because we did me and some friends, including my mum and sister, we did an Advent swap. And it was Jane Austen themed because it was 250 years since Jane Austen was born. And I had been showing you, I didn't do Vlogmas, but I'd been showing you in regular podcasts the yarns and telling you about the colours and everything and showing you progress. And then I got into 12 cast-ons and I completely forgot to share my wrap when I did my January podcast about everything that I'd worked on. And I can't believe I did that. I mean, I can believe I did that because it was a crazy busy time, but I can't believe I did that. So here is my Advent wrap. This is the Luminara shawl by, I'm going to forget her name again, Luminara shawl by Lindsay Fowler. There we go. She designed it to be done with a 100-gram skein and 10 20-gram minis. I'm doing it with 24 minis. And so the way that she designed it was all of these different sections are different amounts of rows. Like it's a regular repeat, but she would do the contrast color for like 2 rows or 4 rows or 6 rows. I think maybe 8 rows is the most that she's done of one color. In the contrast color, maybe 6. And so she just mixed those 10 minis up with all the different contrasts. So what I did was I looked at her pattern and did the same amount of rows of the contrast each time, but did it with a different color. And so you've got a much wider range of colors in here. And that means 2 things. One is at the beginning, color 1, 2, 3, 4, which is these ones, don't have much airtime, if you will. But the other thing is it actually had 28 sections of color rather than the 24 that I was using, because it's not designed as an Advent shawl. It's just how I've been doing it. Getting this out again, I'm like, man, I want to keep working on this. This is gorgeous. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the 24 colors as she has written. Sorry. I'm doing my 24 Advent colors according to the sizes that she had. And then I'm actually going to come back and bring these 4 in that I started with and do them at the end. And then for the border, which there's a lace border in a different pattern, I will pick whichever ones I want to out of the rest of them to do that. So where am I at to? I have done, I think, 1 color into the last book. I'm not going to go into all the colors right now. I think there were only 5 that I hadn't shown you. And 2 of those are actually here. So you can see, hopefully, a bit of a blue here and then like a variegated greeny purple here. They're the only 2 that I have unwrapped since I last showed you the shawl. But I have added quite a bit into the shawl since I last showed you the shawl. I'm not sure where I was up to. I was working on it, trying to get 1 color added in every day during December. And I thought I would keep doing it into 12 cast ons. And then I just had a few mornings where I was really tired and started making mistakes. And so I stopped working on this in the mornings and started spinning because I didn't have to think as much to spin. But it meant that this then got put on the shelf. So I need to get it off the shelf and do some more work. But let me see if I can show you the colours. I've got these in bags, I think, still, so I don't lose them. There are two that are both blue and very similar, and I knew one was this one and one was a previous one, and I could not see where the other one was used at all, and I was really confused how I'd only used one of them. Then I realised that this one was one of the first 4 colours, which I'm about to repeat, which is why it's still in the bag. All right, we're good. So like I said, I am in the process of knitting the final 4 colours, which was Persuasion. But this is the last colour from Sense and Sensibility, and that is Jane Fairfax Secret. She has a beautiful blue dress in the Romola version of Emma, the mini-series. So there you go. I did it. I figured it out. These are all now wound up because in fact, I think I may have done the last few with most of them I did by hand like this. I may have done the last few with the Yarn Swift and Ball Winder because I knew that I just needed to get them done. All right, so this one here, this is from Persuasion, and this one is called, Quote. So here's the colour. But Anne, with an elegance of mind and sweetness of character which must have placed her high with any people of real understanding, was nobody with either her father or sister. She was only Anne. So I thought that was a nice mix of like very pretty but also quite understated. That one I have finished including. The next one, sorry for crinkling. I love this one. So this is like a sea green with copper speckles, or I think the colourway is tobacco that I speckled in. These are the ones that I dyed, by the way, Persuasion. The quote that goes with it is, the Musgroves had the ill fortune of a very troublesome, hopeless son, and the good fortune to lose him before he reached his 20th year. When my dad saw this colour, because my mum is in the swap with us, he was like, how on earth did you get such a beautiful colour to go with such a, crazy, horrendous quote? Hilarious, but horrendous. And I said, he was a sailor. Like, that's the sea green with the tobacco speckled in as the troublesome. I quite enjoyed that one. The next one, day 23, is this, hang on, let me open the quote. Is this golden colour. The years which had destroyed her youth and bloom had only given him a more glowing, manly, open look, in no respect lessening his personal advantages. She had seen the same Frederick Wentworth. So there you go. That one is about Frederick, the male lead in Persuasion. And again, opening all of these just made me want to go rewatch the movies again. And the final one is blues with a little bit of a sandy beige. Lime in November. The party soon found themselves on the seashore, and lingering only as all must linger and gaze on a first return to the sea, proceeded toward the Cobb. So a nice, peaceful, calm one to finish off. I put this aside basically at the end of December when I started doing the 12 cast-ons, because that was all consuming at the time. And now that I've pulled it out again, I would love to get this done. So there's still a little bit to go, but I think pulling that out and doing some more on that would be fun. So I might move that back downstairs and work on that occasionally. If it's downstairs, it gets work. That's how it generally works. And I think that is all the knitting. However, I did say I had some spinning to share with you. So I did start spinning every day as I listen to the Bible in the morning. And I have 3 finished spins to share with you, which is quite insane. This is the first one. So this is the one that I showed you on a bobbin last week. It's a grey Shetland. It's 150 grams and it was 441 meters unwashed, so probably around 400 meters washed, which would make it a nice sport weight. It is delightful. This puffed up so beautifully in washing. It feels delightful. I was unsure about buying a grey Shetland just because I don't tend to wear grey, but having washed this, it's got such a almost fawny undertone to it that I could totally and will totally wear this. But it is only 150 grams, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to use this for. But it is delightful and squishy. This is the first time I've spun a Shetland. It won't be my last. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for Shetland that I can spin in the future. I did it 3-ply short forward, if that means anything to you. And I did talk last episode about whether I would do 2-ply or 3-ply. I did a quick little ply back test, and these are the results. This one here is 2-ply and that one's 3-ply. And the 2-ply was just so thin. Like it would have been a very light fingering weight, and some parts would have been even thinner because it wasn't the most consistent, that I decided in this case I'm going to do 3-ply and go with it. I guess I could have maybe underplied it a bit. Nah, it would have been too thin. So I went for the 3-ply because I had been spinning it as a 3-ply, intending it to be a 3-ply. And next time I do it, I might try and spin it slightly thicker and see if I can do a 2-ply, because that way I can use it for colour work. Let me clarify. I can use this for colour work, but since I started spinning this, I have been told that 2-ply works better for colour work. Not that you can't use 3-ply or other plies, but 2-ply works better. And so in spinning, I'm just going to plan for that a little bit. The other thing is I always get, I can write information down, but I always struggle to attach it because I think I need to go get a string to attach it. And then this morning or last night, I was like, I can use stitch markers. Who says you need to have string? I have plenty of these lightboard markers. I can easily attach it that way. And so I did that. And I'm really happy that I did, because that was so much easier than finding string that I don't want. All the string that I have is stuff that I want. So there you go. Anyway, so that one is done and delightful, and I love, love, love it. And I'm looking for more Shetland to spin in the future. When I finished that, I spoke last week about how I was planning to do some more spinning, but I couldn't access the fibre that I was planning to spin. And so 2 things happened. One was I did just pull a bag out of the chest next to me, which had 2 yarns in it. But before I even did that, I realised that I had 50 grams downstairs waiting to be spun that was in a different it was in the basket with all of my bobbins, and I'd put it there a while ago to give it a try and never got around to it. So I pulled that out and I spun that into singles and then plied it into a 2-ply. And this is that yarn. Now this is a bit more thick and thin. It was carded yarn, and so I did a long draw 2-ply, and I was trying to do it thick and it didn't always work. But I do really like the final yarn. Now this one I bought a whole bunch of fibre quantities from Expressia Art, who I'll link below. They're a Polish online shop. I don't know if they have an in-person store, but I buy from them online. And they have a whole bunch of different fibre, which I don't know how much is intended for spinning and how much it's for. Like, they have people making like blankets, so they have like thick roving that people will just knit. They have a lot of carding things, and so the quality of yarn isn't necessarily consistent or designed for spinning. And so when I bought this, it was 50 grams carded New Zealand wool, and I bought it not knowing if it would be good for spinning or not. You can see there's like some more swampy greeny bits, there's some more orangey bits. It came in a bat where there were some bits that were quite orange and some bits that were quite green, and the orange seemed to be very, very small bits, like not quite neps, but getting close to it, where the green seemed to be longer bits of wool. And so I thought, if this was for felting, it would work beautifully. For spinning, the bits that were more orange seemed to be harder to spin. And there were definitely times where, like the Shetland, I don't think I had the yarn break on me at all while I was spinning. For this one, it broke quite a few times just because the fibres weren't long enough to actually grip to themselves. So I had that when I was spinning, and also when I was plying, it broke a couple of times, just because it didn't have enough twist or because the fibres were so short. Like, it was a bit more of a problem yarn. But I'm not blaming the people who sold it, because it was sold, I think, for felting, not for spinning. Having said that, the yarn itself is delightful and I would love to knit with it. I don't know what I would knit with it, and I don't know, I may have bought 2 50-gram bumps and the other 50 grams is somewhere else, or I may have just bought one, and so I just have one New Zealand wool carded woolen spun. Maybe it would work with that. I do have a hand spun shawl that I'm wanting to make, and I was like, that could actually work really well with that. It's a more worsted style knit, so maybe I'll put it with those yarns. But anyway, it's 48 grams and it's 112 meters unwashed, so would say maybe 100 meters washed, definitely in the worsted weight. And then the last one that I did spun up very quickly. The second, it's another 50-gram bump. The second 25 grams I did in one day. The kids were a little bit later coming downstairs. I think it was Saturday even. No, it wasn't Saturday. Maybe I applied it on Saturday and washed it yesterday. Yeah, probably applied and washed yesterday. Anyway, the kids were a little bit later coming downstairs, so I got a bit of extra spinning time. And so that is this one. This is 100% merino, also from Expressia Art, and also to just try their different bases. This is soft. I think this is they've got 3 microns of merino. And so this, I don't know if this is their medium or their super fine merino, but I bought some from all of them. This one, I, again, tried to spin thick into a 2-ply. There's no kind of fractal anything. It was just a tops blend, I think is what it was. So, yeah, nice and quick, nice and simple. Plied it up, washed it, like very, very recent. Washed it yesterday, was dry this morning. Yeah, not sure what else to say about that. It was enjoyable. Having done these 3, so again, I'm still learning what I like to spin. Having done these 3, the Shetland took a long time because I spun it so fine, but I love the finished yarn. The New Zealand wool, I also really like the finished yarn, and the spinning of it was really enjoyable for the most part because I love doing long draw. And so spinning long draw, if it didn't have so many short fibres, I would have loved it. The merino was my least favourite of the 3 to spin. I find merino a little bit more grippy, which when I started doing the Shetland, I was like, this just falls out of your hands. Like, it doesn't have the same grip. But having spun through all of the Shetland and going back to a merino, I was like, man, I love Shetland. Shetland is so delightful to spin, and merino, Yeah. So I'm interested, I've got another 50-gram bump of merino that I bought at the same time, but is more teals, doesn't have the orange, it's more teal and black, and maybe a bit more blue. So I'm going to try and do that as a 2-ply as well. I have like pre-drafted these, all of them I pre-drafted. Like I've prepped them, at least the Shetland and the merino I prepped in a similar way, except I was trying to do the merino thicker. So maybe that was it. Maybe if I spun the next one thin, I would enjoy it more. But I don't think so. I think I just prefer not merino, which is, it is what it is. Anyway, I have a lot more fibre that I've already bought, and I'm excited to try spinning them to see what I actually want to spin in the future, and what yarns I want to buy, what fibres I want to buy. But yeah, I'm enjoying spinning up what I have. All right. The other thing I have here before I pick out my next focus project is, this is the yarn that I bought the other day. Now, I don't often show yarn that I buy when I buy it, but I bought this. It's Drops Fables. It's color 122 and it's a headed green. And I bought it on sale. Drops had a 30% off sale at probably Drops wide, but I bought it from my normal shop. And I bought it to make the, I'm not going to remember the fellowship sweater. I'll try and put a photo up here. I don't remember the name of the sweater, but it's a Lord of the Rings inspired choose your own adventure sweater. It's by Grey Owl Knits, and I love it. There's another Grey Owl Knits sweater pattern that's being released at the beginning of March that I really want to do. It's got badges on it. I think it's Wind of the Willows inspired. Wind in the Willows inspired. But I was looking at her patterns because that one's coming out, and I found this one and I was like, I want to make that. And my first thought was, I want to make that for my husband, but he wouldn't wear it. Knowing him, it's not his style of sweater. And then I was like, my brother loves Lord of the Rings and would totally wear that sweater. I mean, he would wear it just because I knit it, so would my husband, but I think my brother would really love it. So I bought this. My brother has kind of similar colouring to me. Hair's a bit more sandy, but I thought this would work really well as a main colour, and then I'm going to use scraps for all of the different motifs throughout. Yeah, so this one I bought, I went and had a look, it was on sale, and so I bought a sweater quantity for my brother. I did, before I did that, come and have a look in my journal, my knitting journal, which is right here. Oh, sorry, bumped the camera. This is my knitting journal for this year, and I came through and I had a look at all of my yarn, which, you know, is a lot, and it has here quantities, like what yarn it is, whether it's got a plan, and how much I have. And I had a look through and I was like, I don't actually have a large enough quantity of fingering weight yarn to do this for my brother. That isn't already being used or planned to be used for another project. So I wanted to share that with you as a this is coming soon thing. When I was speaking to my sister before, I was like, I thought about it last night, buying the pattern, finding the needles and casting on. And I was like, why would I do that now? Because we did find an apartment. We are about to move. That means everything is chaos and packing and crazy and everything. So I was like, starting a new all over colour sweater right now, not a good idea. So here we go. Here's the yarn. I'm putting it back with the other yarn. I did buy at the same time just a single ball of this one because I thought that would be a good contrast colour. I don't have a huge amount of beiges and whites, but the rest of the contrast colours I will just pull from my scrap basket. So yeah, they're sitting there and waiting. But yeah, I obviously haven't cast it on because this is not the time for large new projects. However, I will still be knitting, obviously. in the middle of moving, and whatever I end up moving unpacked will be what gets a lot of work. So, having said that, I'm going to pick another project from here for a focus. This week, coming up, I'm going to work on my Awesome Gossamer. I already said that. So this will be for week 4 of February to find out what I'm going to focus on. And I should say, I've got one in here. Everything in here that is a focus project is anything that I started from 12 cast-ons 2026 or earlier. So they're not all 12 cast-on projects, but anything that I had on the needles before this year or that I started as part of 12 cast-ons. So here we go. The Elton oh, I just threw that on the ground. All right, the Elton pullover. Let me grab that. There we go. So the Elton pullover, the reason I'm laughing is that I actually did 4 rows on this the other day because I was like, I need plain vanilla knitting, and I didn't have plain vanilla knitting. And so I pulled out the Elton pullover because I'm like, that's just long rows of like stockinette stitch, right? Knit flat at this point, but stockinette stitch. And so I did pull that out and I started working on it. And then I realized that because it's still in mohair, at least if there's 4 rows mohair, 4 rows not mohair, that when I'm knitting the mohair, I may as well be knitting my Awesome Gossamer, which is also mohair, and lots of stockinette rows flat. So I did do 4 rows of it, and then I ended up pulling out a different project that was not mohair for that purpose. But yeah, so that's downstairs, and that's really easy to pull out and work on. And if I can get, let's see, where am I up to with it? I'm working on the back, and I think if I can get kind of 6 inches done on the back, then it's starting the front, working the front, and then after that it'll be joining in the round. But I think that will be a pretty good focus project that I can pick up and work on pretty easily in the midst of everything else, at least until I get the back done. The front may be a bit more tricky. All right, I'm excited. So I'm going to write that in my knitting book. I'll show you where I've got it actually. Just down here, I've got this little sticker. So Awesome Gossamer Alpine Bloom for week 3. I'm going to put Awesome Gossamer again, and then week 4 I will put the Elton pullover, and that just helps me keep track of what I'm working on and what I'm focusing on. I'm excited. The other thing that I thought of that I haven't been doing, which I said I wanted to, was my Advent mittens. I wanted to get 2 done a month, and I did absolutely no more in January, and I have done absolutely none in February. So I might pull them down and finish the thumb and cast on the second mitten at least. Because the Elton is not colourwork, I think I might do that. The Alpine Bloom, I considered it, but then I was like, that's 2 colourwork projects at the same time. And I don't have that much time to focus on colourwork in my life. So maybe now that I've got a more plain knitting one to focus on, I can pull that in and see if I can make some progress on that. All right, well, I'm going to say goodbye now and go spend some more time with my family. See if I can get these Stardew Valley socks wrapped up and shipped out for the birthday that happened a week ago. Put all of my project bags away, keeping out the ones that I'm going to work on. I'm pretty excited. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, I'd love to hear what you've been working on. Have you been doing 12 cast-on projects? If you've had them, are you working on older whips? Have you cast on 1,000 new things? After last episode where I had all these new cast-ons on top of the 12 cast-ons, I don't think I've cast on anything in the last week. And even when I finished these socks, I thought about casting on something new and I didn't. So there you go. I think my cast-on frenzy has finished. I say that hesitantly, but probably for the moment, my cast-on frenzy has finished. So what have you been working on while you watch this, but also in the rest of your life? What have you been working on? I will see you again soon, hopefully. Next episode, I will be drawing winners for the giveaway. So if you haven't watched the previous episode, go back and watch that, enter the giveaway, and I will let you know what that is next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And I will see you next time. Bye.